Dean Burkhart will report for duty August the 15th, 1952. Now, this is the story that the paper carried. Dr. Burkhart received his bachelor's degree at Knox College in 39, a Master of Arts degree in 40, a Master of Arts in Teaching in 42, and the doctorate in 45, all three of those last degrees from Harvard University. After receiving his Master's of Arts in Teaching, he taught social studies in the secondary schools in Lenox, Massachusetts, and in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He's taught courses in American history and related courses for 4 years in the Maxwell Graduate School of Citizenship and Public Affairs at Syracuse University, Syracuse, New York. He served as a dual professor in social studies and education at Syracuse University prior to his present position. As a dual professor, he taught half-time in the social science division of the College of Liberal Arts, and the other half-time he served as the teacher of social science methods and the supervisor of student teaching in the field of social studies at Syracuse University. He is chairman of the curriculum committee at Syracuse and one of the 3 representatives from the School of Education to the University Senate, which is the highest faculty policy-making body there. And it goes back into some of his college days. At Knox College, Dr. Burkhart was a member of Phi Beta Kappa, president of the sophomore class and later of the senior class. I don't know how you'd have it any other way than later if you were president of the sophomore class and senior, but anyway, we spell that out for people so they'd be sure to understand it. He was a member of the Student Executive Council for 3 years, a student marshal in his junior year, a member of the college theater 4 years, president of his senior class, he was president of the college theater in his senior year, member of the staff of the yearbook and of the college newspaper staff 3 years. He was president of Phi Gamma Delta. During his senior year, a member of the senior men's honorary in the French club and the German club. He received a letter in tennis and was a cheerleader for 3 years. Otherwise, I didn't think when I read this he had anything to do, but I happen to know that he met his wife, who was then Miss Dorothy Johnson, who was now a graduate of Knox College, and she was also a member of Phi Beta Kappa. Her parents reside in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and some are in Egg Harbor, Wisconsin. This is still the newspaper article. She's a member of Mortar Board, and when at Knox College, she won an exchange scholarship for study in France. She's a member of Phi Mu, Social Sorority, and other organizations. Dr. and Mrs. Burkhart are the members of the Episcopal Church in Syracuse. They have 3 children, John, age 10, Richard, 7, and Betsy, 3. Well, this is ancient history. What about Ball State since 1952? Well, the children are sort of grown up. There are 2 members of it that serve on the tennis team at the Burris School. And Betsy is now a young lady just about as tall as her mother. The dean has distinguished himself on campus in a great many ways, but not only here on the campus, but in state, regional, and national organizations, and he's achieved real recognition. He is still an Episcopalian. In fact, he is the lay reader in the Episcopalian Church here. He is a past president of our local Rotary Club, and he is the member of a small committee who have to do with the work with the North Central Association Workshop and Teacher Education. We call it the Committee on Teacher Education in the North Central. Well, I could tell you a great many more things, but I want to leave him a little time to talk about this subject to which he's been assigned this evening, and that is the Ball State family. Rich, it's a real pleasure to present you.
Thank you very much, Jack. It would have been quite adequate to say that I was the dean of the college at Ball State Teachers College, for there's nothing any finer than that. Mrs. Roach and President Mrs. Emens and members of the Ball State Teachers College family and friends. I was glad that somewhere in there, in that introduction, the President mentioned the fact that I had been at Harvard, for it gives me an opportunity to tell a Harvard story, and since this is after dinner and you always expect a story from an after-dinner speaker, I'd like to tell a Harvard story. It has something to do with my topic, too, because it's a story about a family who had a boy they'd like to have go to Harvard, but it was, as ever, difficult to get into this institution. You have to take college board examinations, and it developed that the father in this family had to be out in Hong Kong or someplace in the Near East about the time the news came in. And he and his son worked it all out that they'd have a signal so father would know whether the son had been admitted or whether he hadn't. Since Hong Kong was a long ways away and cables were expensive, and this story goes quite a ways back, You'll recognize how far back it goes in just a minute. They'd worked out a system. He was just to cable yes if he'd been admitted or no if he'd not been admitted. So along in the middle of the summer, and Father was in Hong Kong, and he got this cable from his son, and it said yes. In the heat of Hong Kong and in the excitement of the business, he couldn't for the life of him remember what this meant, so he cabled back, yes what? And like a good Harvard boy, he cabled back, yes sir. So this is a family story, and you know how long ago that was. Mary Ellen Chase, writing about colleges, said the first quality of a college is the feeling that it gives of belonging to a community of people interested in discovering the inseparable relationship between learning and life. And to Miss Chase's definition, I would like to add the word family, where the word community appears. The concept of a family has often been applied to a college, but it usually refers to the students of that college, past and present. In his address to the Knox College family, one of my former professors, Alfred W. Newcomb, excluded himself from the immediate family. He said that he was a long-time household servant. Now, I would like to modify his concept of the collegiate family to include us all, faculty, administration, and staff, as well as the students in the Ball State Teachers College family. You see, I want to be a member of the family, too, even though my contribution to it may indeed be a domestic service. After all, not too many families nowadays have servants. Work has to be done by somebody in the family. You're aware, I'm sure, that a family is a group which recognizes some common bonds, some mutual heritage, and which acknowledges some mutual responsibility. And it's my proposition this evening that such a Ball State Teachers College family does indeed exist. And I propose to welcome the senior members of the family back for this family festival, and to wish the junior members Godspeed as they depart on Monday to make their way in the world. I'm sure you'll agree with me that the family is back home tonight, just as on the major holidays of Christmas and Thanksgiving and the 4th of July we go over the hill and through the woods to grandmother's house. So at homecoming and at commencement we gather together here on the Ball State Teachers College campus. And as at the family gatherings, we look around and notice the growth of the sons and the daughters and the nephews and the nieces. Each year there's a new crop. Each year grandmother's table is sorely taxed to accommodate the growing members. And each year some of us have gone on to fame and some to glory, but new additions replenish the stock and the family thrives and is perpetuated. The family is a closely knit group, acknowledging an affinity and a respect for one another. And here I want to do something dangerous. I want to introduce some of my own personal experiences, and I'd like to use some names, which is even more dangerous. But assuming this is all within the family, may I ask you to think with me that when I use one name, I could have used 30 others. I may use yours, but if I don't, I could have. I mean to mention you. Now, on our campus, the president traditionally tells the freshmen that Ball State Teachers College is a friendly place. And he instructs them to take advantage of this atmosphere and learn to be friendly, too. This is a very important introduction to the Ball State Teachers College family, for it says to me that we care about one another. We want to know one another better. We stand for the principle that people are the important things at Ball State Teachers College, as is true anywhere else. And it seems to me that this idea is a potent one, for even though we are now a much larger family, one still gets the feeling that we're a kindred group, a friendly family. We like to do things together. This gives me an opportunity to remind you that other story about the family. In this case, a father was talking to a son who was thinking about getting married, and he was telling his son about the need to do things together. He'd been reading McCall's, I guess. He said, you have to understand about marriage, if your wife wants you to do things with her, why, you should do them with her. For instance, if she wants you to go to the movies with her. If she wants you to do the dishes with her. And the son looked at the father and he said, suppose she wants me to mop the floor. That was good when we heard it the other night, wasn't it? It's the only way I can get a drink, and I need one. Well, this attitude of friendliness seems to me is noticeable locally at a very high level during commencement and homecoming. But it's possibly more striking when one goes off campus at any time during the year and meets another member of the Ball State Teachers College family. I felt personally taken into the family the first year I was here, when I was sent by the college to attend a meeting in New York City. At that time, there were 10 or 12 other Indiana colleges represented by their New York alumni and by the campus officials. After my short speech and those of the other college representatives, the one other member of the Ball State Teachers College family in that whole audience came forward to introduce himself. 1,000 miles from Muncie, 7 years ago, the common bond of Ball State Teachers College brought two people close together, briefly, to talk about the family. And for me, the sense of belonging was sharpened. This happens all the time. And just a month or two ago at Valparaiso, at a meeting, a man came up to me and he said proudly, I'm a graduate of Ball State Teachers College. And in effect, he said, I'm certainly glad to see you because I know that you're a member of Ball State Teachers College. I'm proud to be part of that family. It seems to me that the friendly campus idea is a pervasive one. We could take this incident just a little farther and examine it, see why this friendliness persists. I believe it persists because it's reflected from one individual to another. My friend in Valparaiso asked me about people at Ball State Teachers College, and for him, he asked about an individual, a specific teacher. For him, Robert La Follette was the turning point in his life. After receiving this teacher's friendship, the student's vocation crystallized into a commitment that has been his life ever since. For a second person, the teacher was Obie Christie, and for a third, Billy Williams. Now, as I said earlier, there's no one on this faculty or staff about whom it could not be said that he made a difference in the lives of his students. So you insert any other names that you would like for the three that I have presented. The point I want to make is that this family feeling exists, that its origin may be traced directly to individual faculty members and staff persons at the college, and it is connected specifically to acts of personal concern and encouragement. I dwell on this point because I believe that the sense of kinship is invaluable, that we should not only strive to preserve it, but to strengthen it. And for me, it's clear how this can be done. Wherever you go and are identified as a member of the Ball State Teachers College family, you too will feel this deep-seated sense of mutual helpfulness. It's a credit card that not everybody may possess. A family is a growing group. Ours is a young, but no longer a small family. The first graduating class in 1919, including Mr. Spuler, numbered 11, according to the Orient. And tomorrow we will present 1,237. In 1957, we awarded our 10,000th bachelor's degree, and we expect to award our 2,500th master's degree in 1960. Last year, the alumni office counted 18,000 of us scattered all over the globe. This, too, is like the modern American family. The kids leave home and go into the world seeking adventure. Well, where do they go? Perhaps you've seen that map that Bob has made, which shows the locations of our graduates. Obviously, most of them are still in Indiana. Some 10,500 are in Indiana. 500 in Illinois, 426 in Ohio, 425 in California, 389 in Michigan, 193 in Florida, 163 in New York State. There is a Ball State Teachers College graduate in every state of the Union, and some 56 at the time of this counting in foreign lands. And what do the graduates do when they leave the family homestead? What do they want to be when they grow up? You know that story about the American educator who'd just been to Russia to study the Russian system, and he went into a classroom and observed that the teacher was asking the children some questions, and they seemed to come in threes. They said, who is your mother, who is your father, and what do you want to do? And the answers were much like a catechism. The answer that the child was supposed to give: my mother is Russia, my father is Khrushchev, and I want to be an engineer or a tractor driver or a dam builder or any one of a number of things. But there was one over in the corner who seemed to be very much in a corner, and so the American teacher went over to listen, and she was getting it pretty close to right. She said, my mother is Russia and my father is Khrushchev, and I want to be an orphan. Well, I hope none of us want to be orphans, and we haven't demonstrated that this evening, the way we've turned out to Bob's invitation to attend this session. Most of us obviously have gone into teaching as a vocation, and our people are teachers, principals, supervisors, superintendents. Some of us are college professors and even college presidents. Some 120 of us have already received doctorates in education. Some of us have gone into the allied fields of textbook writing, library work, publishing and selling, into state offices of public instruction, United States Office of Education, ISTA and NEA. The business world has appealed to many of us. I think our graduates have gone into very nearly every walk of life. The other evening, this daughter of ours, who is, she likes to say she's 1 decade old, asked me, is there anyone famous in our family? And I said, well, sure, your brother's famous. They put his pictures up on the wall over at Burr's. No, she said, that's not what I mean. That's not famous. Well, I said, your other brother and your mother had their pictures in the Muncie newspapers. No, that's not what I mean. Is there anyone in our family who's famous and dead? Now, like all families, Ball State Teachers College has some people that are famous and dead, but better still, there are some who are famous and still alive. Even some of them are so close to us that we don't recognize that they're famous. And let me mention just a few. Let's begin with our president, John R. Emens, who's been president of the Association for Higher Education, which is the one comprehensive organization of higher education in the whole United States. And you'll remember, of course, that he's been president of the North Central Association, our regional accrediting agency, which is the largest of the 7 that exist in the United States. Well, one can't tell all of the exploits of all these people, but just let me mention a few. Let me mention Earl Johnson, who currently is president of the Indiana State Teachers College and a member of the Teacher Training and Licensing Commission of this state, and member of several committees of the NEA. Let me mention Robert Bell, who's president of the National Business Teachers Association, or Charles Brumfield, who's recently brought to us the 4th and about to bring us a 5th National Science Institute in Mathematics. Or Dr. Myrtle Toops, President of the National Association of Core Teachers and author of 2 books. Robert Cooper, District Governor of Kiwanis, member of the State Committee on Elementary Education, and I could go on and on and on. Let me mention a few famous graduates in Muncie, and you'll see how dangerous this is because I may mention your name and I may not. But remember, I mean to mention your name whether I do or not. We have Fred Moore Hinshaw, who needs no further introduction. Irma Marsh, Glenn Steepleton, Fred Toohey, Ray Applegate, and Lucille Knotts. Ralph Whitinger, Bob Winry, N.D. Corey. Let me mention a few on the national scene. It wasn't so very long ago that we gave an honorary degree to Chester Alter, Chancellor of the University of Denver. And last year we heard from Fred Heimberger, Vice President of the Ohio University. Robert Pingree, Professor of Mathematics at the University of Illinois, is one of our distinguished graduates, as is R. Nelson Snyder, who is the Secretary of the North Central Association. I could mention George Wagoner, head of the Department of Business at the University of Tennessee, and go on and on. But let me skip to what I'd call allied professions. We have Fred Armstrong, who's the Education Director of the United States Steel Foundation, and Marie Fraser, who publishes the Indiana Teacher. Or John Luddington, who's the Chief of the Secondary Schools Division of the United States Office of Education. Or Robert Van Dyne, Deputy Chief of the Education Division of the United States Overseas Mission to Thailand. Or Hallie Farmer, Vice President of the AAUW. Let me pick 2 or 3 names from industry and business, like Clarence Reese, President of the Continental Motors in Detroit, or Murray Wise of the American Banknote Company in New York, or Lou Ward, Technical Information Department Head at the Woolridge Company at Los Angeles, California. Or let me turn to literature for just a moment and refer to John Llewellyn, who inaugurated the Quiz Kids program and was a writer for Time and Life. Or Glenn White, who's the associate editor of the Ladies' Home Journal. Or Dale Burgess, state sports editor of the Star News, Indianapolis. Or 4 or 5 in the United States government affairs, like Jimmy Fidler, United States Weather Bureau, television's first weatherman. Or Ray Burns, atomic energy chemist. Harold Miller, housing expert for the TVA. Nathan Woodruff, associated with the Oak Ridge Atomic Project. Charles B. Ferguson, Second Secretary of the American Legation at Taiz, Yemen. Or Lawrence Carlson, Cultural Attaché, American Embassy, Stockholm, Sweden. I did not attempt to name all of the people who were famous, remember, because you may not have heard your name. But I did try to pick people from different walks of life to illustrate the point that I want to make. Our people have gone many different directions and are serving in many different capacities. To come back to Betsy's definition about being dead, if you want to be famous, I suppose we could count as famous a former professor of this college, a professor of rural education, who was also state senator and president, L.A. Pittenger, and those other superintendents of public instruction who had the honor to serve as president of this college, Linnaeus B. Hines and Benjamin Burris. In any family group, there are, of course, those stories about the infamous members of the family. You know the story about the historian who was commissioned to write an official history of a very famous family. There were 3 brothers. 2 of them were good, upright, upstanding citizens, and the third was a murderer. After the chapters extolling the virtues of the first 2, the historian was really puzzled, because as a historian he had to put down the truth. But since this was a commissioned history, he had a problem. So he finally wrote, "After an interesting career, John died in the harness while occupying the chair of applied electricity at one of the nation's leading institutions." Well, that should take care of any skeletons we might have in our closet. And of course, in any account of families, there are the family quarrels. Family quarrels are as common as apple pie. I'm reminded of President M.O. Ross's admonition to his colleague Robert Reardon when Reardon became the head of the Anderson College family not so very long ago. President Ross said that a college president is bounded on the north by his staunch board of trustees, and on the south by his intelligent faculty, and on the east by his energetic students, and on the west by a vocal alumni. All the president had to do, Ross said, was to harmonize the divergent interests of these four important groups, and this was why most presidents stayed in office such a short time. Well, that ought to take care of the family quarrels. The family is a house, a clan, a people, something unique and distinctive. And as such a house, a family is proud of its heritage. A part of our history is our unique heritage of private support by civic-minded citizens like the Balls of a state institution of higher education. And this amalgam of public and private interest is one of the hallmarks of an institution, Ball State Teachers College. We, the faculty this year, have been exploring the attitudes of our students and ourselves to attempt to see if we can determine any other distinctive characteristics of this family. This process is very interesting, but it has one serious limitation. It's a horizontal exploration. We're asking each other questions. And what we really need is a vertical exploration as well. Margaret Mead, one of our famous anthropologists, wrote that what the American family needed most was a grandmother. And so do we. Margaret Mead was writing about the fact that most American families represent units of individuals who marry and move away from home and start their families as isolated units without the benefit of aunts and uncles and grandparents. When the children come along, they are then compared with the neighbor's children. And this is a horizontal type of comparison, and it's a very flat perspective. You know, under these circumstances, it becomes very important which child has the first tooth, the Green's child or the Brown's child, or which one says the first word, or which child takes the first step. Now, if there were a grandmother available, she'd put the teething and the walking and the talking business in their proper vertical perspective of 3 generations. Then perhaps the Greens and the Browns could be friends. Well, we could use a grandfather or a grandmother in our family. Mr. Van Cleve, who's been working on the history of Ball State Teachers College, may turn out to be this very grandfather that we need. As with other families, there are some maternal operations. The mother, your alma mater, is interested in you forever as the mother of every family. The alumni office exists to keep you informed of the activities around the old home place and to extract from you news of your activities, which we can then pass along and share with the rest of the family. The open houses at our State Teachers Association meetings and the alumnus are but 2 of the ways in which your alma mater tries to keep in touch with the kith and the kin. Well, I've been working around this idea about the family and trying to suggest that ours is a unique one. What is it? What is our clan? What is our family? What does it mean to be a Ball Stater? Perhaps you remember Thomas Ibarra, the young man from Caracas, who told a delightful story of how his mother checked up on him after he'd been out in the evening. She'd wait up for him, and when he came home, she'd say, "Can you say statistics?" And if he could, he was acceptable. In my family, it worked a little differently. As we went out the door, the last words were, "Don't forget you're a Burkhart." Now, wherever you go, don't forget you're a Ball Stater. But what does that mean? What does it mean to be a member of the Ball State Teachers College family? Well, if you look at the present college, it means that the members of the family are a part of a vital, already large and expanding institution. No other institution in Indiana is growing more rapidly. Only 3 of the 35 or 36 institutions of higher education in this state are now larger, and most of them are older. Ball State Teachers College is one of the largest teachers' colleges in the nation. In fact, you could say it's one of the largest in the world. Our college is well known throughout the world and throughout our nation. For instance, and I could take several of these, but time and Mr. Linson would not permit. The film, Teachers College USA, which Julian Bryan made here, has been shown all over the globe. Another, for instance, the American Association of School Administrators recently designated 63 institutions of higher education as worthy of offering training for superintendents. And of the 63, Ball State Teachers College was one. Further, the AASA appointed a board of 9 men to study the applications of other institutions which wish to prepare superintendents, and one of us, Dr. Merle Strom of our Department of Education, was appointed to this nationwide board. This college has enjoyed a national reputation for a long time. In 1939, Charles Harper was writing a definitive book for the NEA which he called A Century of Teacher Education. And at that time he cited Ball State Teachers College with its modern plant and able faculty as characteristic of the best in teacher education. Our library surpasses that of most institutions of its size. Our standing among other colleges is very good. Our social status is quite respectable. You know, sociologists have found it very helpful to group people into lower class, middle class, and upper class. Problem, of course, is who is in which class. And one observer discovered that you could place people in a upper, middle, or lower class on the basis of the amount of grass around their homes. Seems to me this makes us definitely upper class. To be a college graduate is something very special. You and I here tonight might think that everybody is a college graduate. But remember that about 50% of those people who begin college as freshmen ever graduate. That about 25 to 30% of the kids who leave high school choose to try to go to college. And that something like 60 or 75% of America's youth of that age finish high school. It's a very small group of United States citizens that are college graduates. If our nation looks to trained intelligence for leadership, there are very few of us indeed, considering the magnitude of the task that lies ahead of us. And we must face up to it, for you'll recall my distinguished predecessor told this group last year, you didn't get all this education just to die smart. To be a college graduate is something very special. I'd like to quote from a poem that John Masefield wrote for the University of Sheffield in 1946, which comes to us through the courtesy of the Brown University alumni. Mr. Masefield wrote, "There are few earthly things in these days of broken frontiers and collapsing values, when the dams are down and the floods are making misery, when every future looks somewhat grim and every ancient foothold has become something of a quagmire. Wherever a university stands, it stands and shines. Wherever it exists, the free minds of men, urged on to full and fair inquiry, may still bring wisdom into human affairs. There are few earthly things more beautiful than a university. It is a place where those who hate ignorance may strive to know, where those who perceive truth may strive to make others see, where seekers and learners alike, banded together in the search for knowledge, will honor thought in all its finer ways, will welcome thinkers in distress or exile, will uphold forever the dignity of thought and learning, and will exact standards in these things. They will give to the young in their impressionable years the bond of a lofty purpose shared, of a great corporate life whose links will not be loosed until they die. They give young people that close companionship for which youth longs, and that chance of endless discussion of the themes which are endless, without which youth would seem to be a waste of time. There are few things more enduring than a university. Religions may split into sect or heresy. Dynasties may perish or be supplanted, but for century after century the university will continue, and the stream of life will pass through it. The thinker and the seeker will be bound together in the undying cause of bringing thought into the world. To be a member of one of these great societies must ever be a glad distinction. The mainstream of the lineage of our house has been in education. No vocation is superior to that of teaching. As Dr. Samuel Gould told us last month, a teacher is a person with a touch of immortality. A teacher has an opportunity to leave a vestige of himself in the lives of others. To be a college graduate is something special. To be a graduate of Ball State Teachers College is something very special. This, then, is our house, our family. The colors of the house are red and white. The emblem is the cardinal. The lineage is teacher education and public service. The hallmark, cooperative effort of public-spirited citizens, such as the Balls and that of the state of Indiana. We number nearly 20,000 in 1959, a vigorous, creative, responsive, responsible, wonderful Ball State Teachers College family. I thank you.
The preceding program originated on the campus of Ball State Teachers College, located in Muncie, Indiana. Produced by the Library Film Service. Dr. Marion Grady, librarian.